Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Pokemon Trainer Evan. Let's get started with our wonderful legendary Pokemon rankings. So this is going to be quite an extensive one, so I'm probably going to break this up into two parts. But I'm going to make that call on the field once we're through this. Unlike the starter rankings, obviously, outside of a very small amount of exceptions, there is no evolutionary line. So that's going to be taken out of my ranking system here. So what I'm going to be ranking everything based off of is appearance, in-game use to a degree, as much as I can give you on that, as well as just some notes and design tips that I really think are worthwhile in this. I think that's where the rankings videos have been most successful, is just really talking about design-wise. And so that's where I'm going to go with these legendary rankings. But without further ado, let's get rolling on our video. So I'm, again, using Tiermaker. If you follow my cursor, we have slightly different rankings. I've included an F in this. There was some even worse rankings, but I took that one out for my personal use. And as always, I will be using this link in the description, so if you want to make your own, please do. So we're going to get started with Articuno. Articuno, I think, is a fun start, but the legendary birds in general are not super intriguing. I'm going to put Articuno at a B for now, but I wouldn't be shocked if I bring it down. I like Articuno. I think the tail gives this myth quality to it that is cool, but it's just kind of a bigger blue bird. It's kind of it. What's sad about some of the legendary Pokemon from Gen 1 is that there are other Pokemon in the Gen that I think you could consider more legendary than the legendary birds. I'm looking at like Gyarados, Arcanine to a degree, which it seems was pretty much planned to be a legendary Pokemon, and then was switched last minute. So that's where I would say Articuno is a B. I like Articuno, but it's a little basic. Zapdos, I'll put at the A for now, but I think Zapdos will probably go down eventually. Zapdos has the best design of the three. If you've watched my previous ranking videos, I want to know the type that you're going towards through the design. And if not, there better be a very good reason for that. I think Zapdos has this wonderful angular design, which is so different from the rest of Gen 1. It really brings that electric vibe to it with the color scheme. That is why I'll put Zapdos higher than Articuno. Where Articuno, it's blue, and a light blue, but it doesn't really give off Ice Bird. Zapdos gives off electric Thunderbird vibe, and I think that's tremendous. So that's why I have Zapdos at an A. Meanwhile, Moltres, I don't understand why Moltres gets so much hate. I'm going to put Moltres in B, though, because it is a little bit on the nose, but it's a Phoenix. It's a Firebird. And I think my biggest critique would be that Moltres' body is yellow as opposed to more of a deeper red or a burnt orange or something of that nature. Maybe that was due to game constrictions back in the day, but I don't think a singular color would have burned them on that one. Obviously, they want the fire to stand out in this, which is great, but I just think Moltres is a little basic. I can understand it, but I don't understand why everyone thinks it's so trash. I think it's good, fun design. Of the three, I think Zapdos by far is the best, just because it's so different from the other two. And now we're going to the heavy hitters, and I will be including mythicals in this once we get towards Mew and Celebi, but Mewtwo is an S because of this, and Mewtwo might be getting pulled up into S+, but I'm not quite sure yet. Mewtwo is an S because of this. What the hell is it? You don't know, but you know it is powerful. It has that capability of design to be powerful, like a legendary Pokemon does. Obviously, throughout the entire game of Gen 1 games, you are working towards Mewtwo, and you're getting notes on Mewtwo. Ironically enough, outside of you as the main character, and your rival. One could say Mewtwo is one of the main characters because there's so much backstory put into Mewtwo in that game. And everyone's like, oh, there's not that much. Cinnabar Island, there's tons of notes on that. There's the hints of that through the Team Rocket encounters and the Master Ball. And then it's put off in its own world, and it was a perfect post-game activity to get to Mewtwo because it felt like a phenomenal challenge. And that's why I gotta say Mewtwo's an S. And the design itself gives that DNA vibe and that artificial vibe. Looks almost alien, but yet it's familiar enough to be understood. So that's why I'm gonna put Mewtwo at an S. And Mew, I'm gonna put Mew right in S as well. The Helix tail is why I'm gonna put it there mostly. It's got the fun vibe. You can see where it got from Mewtwo and Mew. Just having the Helix tail is so smart for a DNA-based Pokemon. And it's just got this fun little whimsical vibe. Obviously, the best interpretation of Mew's personality is brought forth in the first movie. Which, by the way, if anyone still has those first movie cards and you're in the comment below, and maybe I'll make you an offer for them because I miss those greatly. Just like every other kid that went to a movie, I had them and I greatly appreciated them. But Mew is so well represented in that movie. But I think beyond the movie, you can see the personality where it's a little on guard with the eyes. It knows that people are after it, but it still feels like it's whimsical. And even without thinking, I'm continually tracing this Helix tail design, which so well encapsulates the idea that Mew is the basis for Mewtwo, and the Mew is the basis for all Pokemon. I think we're going to get to my critique of Arceus eventually. Also, I hate the name Arceus. I think it should be Arceus, but this is me. Mew is the closest I think there is to a true Pokemon god that is well thought out and designed. And I'll get more into that later. But I think Mew is a better basis for all Pokemon than Arceus, and I'll get into that. But this design is so fun. It's so whimsical. Very much hits a mythical vibe to it. Mew's great. And now we're moving on to Gen 2. And like I've said in previous videos, I love Gen 2. I'm very, very biased towards Gen 2. I have no problem admitting to that. But Entei to me is an S. Here's why. Entei has enough red in the brown to get towards a fiery vibe for me. Plus, it's got the billowing smoke of the volcano. And I love that about Entei. And admittedly, Entei is one of the only Pokemon I've never caught. To this day, I still have my copy of Pokemon Crystal. To this day, I still cannot catch Entei. It's just, things just don't work out for me. I don't know what it is. It drives me insane, but it does have that elusive quality. But I like the facial structure. I think that really gives off a different vibe. And I love the spiked back, so it gives that rocky formation of the danger of a volcano. But then the billowing smoke tail back is so smart. And what I really enjoy to create more of the power aspects of Entei is, if you look closely on the legs, he's got these circular binders. In my own Pokemon or Fakemon region that I'm designing, I do have a Mega Entei that I'm very, very fond of. And the way I look at it, Entei, is these are almost shackles, as it's so powerful it has to be contained, which I think is a really smart little nod. I don't know if that was actually what they were going for, but that's how I interpret it, which I really enjoy, because it's almost as if Entei is so powerful, it has to be contained, it has to be controlled. And I love that about Entei. And yes, I understand from previous videos you could say, well, what about it gives fire vibes? I think the billowing tail of smoke is such a really smart, unique way of doing that. So that's why I'm going to go with Entei as an S. I think Entei's great. Ryko, I'm going to put up in the A category, and I'll probably end up putting Ryko at A+. I think it's a great interpretation of a saber-toothed tiger. It's extinct animals, I think, are so smart to use as a legendary basis. I like the markings that they have. It gives more of that saber-toothed tiger vibe without just hitting you over the head with a saber-toothed tiger vibe. And I love the little bolt of electric tail. I like how the energy and the electric capabilities of Ryko are brought forth more through the blue, which I think is really unique. Obviously, when we think electricity specifically in Pokemon, we think yellow. Pikachu, obviously. Zapdos, right there, yellow. Raiko's got the yellow to tell you it's electric, but I love that the hints of light blue are there to give more of what you actually would see in true electricity. Just like many people, you plug something into the wall and you see that little spark. It's usually that light blue color, that very white color. And I think that's really smart for Ryko. And I do like my only critique, I guess, would be I'm not understanding the purple so much. I like it. I think it's a great balancing act, but I don't necessarily get rain cloud or thunder cloud from it, and I think that's what they were going for. But nonetheless, I still think Raikou is an incredibly well designed Pokemon. It looks fierce. It looks powerful. It looks like it could do some real damage, like a legendary Pokemon should be, and it gives off electric vibes. Raikou is an A. And Suicune, I'm going to bring Suicune up to an S as well. I could probably consider A+. I think the difference for me from Ryko to Suicune is it's just such a majestic design. Of the three, I think in terms of majesty and legend and myth being the basis for these Pokemon, Suicune has that with these swirling little tail vibes. I love the headpiece. I love the theming behind it. Ryko has the 4, Entei has the 5, Suicune has the 6 points. I really enjoy that for continuing that sort of vibe of uno, dos, and tres, getting to 4, 5, and 6. I love that kind of continuation. I think that's a nice little special nod. Suicune just has a majesty about it. And I think the purple cloud vibe off the top of the mane really gives that flowing wave vibe. The only thing I will say about that is Suicune is a water Pokemon. And for the longest time, I always thought it was an ice Pokemon. A lot of the moves I had with Suicune were ice-based. I don't know if it's just something I can't get out of my head. I can see the water elements with the rushing mane looking like a rushing wave or rushing river. The light blue obviously gives that vibe off of the flowing tail vibe, gives the movement of water. I get it. But because it's the Aurora Pokemon, I always think of it. Aurora, I think Northern Lights. And I think ice or cold. So that's where, and because of the moves I had, I always associate Suicune with ice. So that could be slightly confusing. And to me, the headpiece on Suicune gives a little bit more crystal vibe than it does. And that would make me think ice, not water. But again, I think the design is so majestic and well done. Of the Pokemon here that we have, this is by far the most majestic design that there is. So I think that's really, really wise. And I think that's great. So, Suicune is still a near perfect design, a near perfect Pokemon. I really enjoy Suicune. There's a reason Suicune was the cover art choice for Pokemon Crystal, because it's beautiful, like legendary Pokemon should be to a degree. And I really like that for Suicune. So Suicune's an S. Continuing to continue my favorites, HoOh, to me, HoOh is an S. The only critique I have is the rainbow Pokemon, and you don't get every color of the rainbow, but that'd be a very busy design. If I keep promising it, and eventually we're going to get there one day, I do have my own personal HoOh design that I'm really excited to share with you guys one day, and I'll fix that. That's my only critique of HoOh. Otherwise, HoOh is phenomenal. I love this broom-like tail, and I love that it's just very different from what you think you'd get from a bird's tail. To me, I'm thinking legendary bird, flowing feather mane, or spiky tail with the electricity of Zapdos, and the fire tail is obvious. But this is almost like it's sweeping up damage done by the legendary beasts, which is such a unique nod and really cool design choice. It just gives me Witch's Broom vibes from a bunch of cartoons that I grew up watching. And I love those design choices in HoOh. And beyond the fact that, yes, it's the rainbow Pokemon and it doesn't have every color of the rainbow in it, what I really enjoy is the color contrast all the way through, and how there's almost this gradient design without trying to be a gradient in HoOh. HoOh is majestic. I don't know if it's as majestic as Suicune, but to go from the green and then get that thin striping of white, and then to get to that nice lighter red color that HoOh has is really, really cool design work. So HoOh is an S. I think HoOh is great and a phenomenal leader for the legendary beasts. It looks like something that these 3 ground-based creatures would follow HoOh as a leader, and I really appreciate that. And then I'm going to take Lugia. Lugia is super popular for a reason. I'm taking Lugia straight to S+. I don't think anyone can argue that. Lugia looks powerful. Lugia looks like you would not want to mess with it. And I adore that. And what I also really love is I love how unique the hand design is with wings. When you think wings, you don't think of hands. And it just looks like it's so multiversal, or, has multi-uses to it. And I really like that. I love the ridged back look. It's just such a unique design for a flying Pokemon, especially for the time. Flying Pokemon were just birds or something that had wings. That's it. And obvious things that had wings. Where this is great. I think the only complaint I might have is the typing doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But when you think of it, that it can communicate with people, that it can commune with the legendary birds and really lead them through danger and to control them, that makes sense. So the psychic is there. I don't get it immediately in the design work, but I just think Lugia is such a powerful, unique design. It has to be in the S+. Like I said, I am biased towards Gen 2. It's my favorite generation, but I just don't think there's much to argue with Lugia outside of what I've already brought up. And another small nod, when you read the Pokedex entry for Lugia, it definitely backs up the super powerful design of Lugia. If you've never read it before, Lugia's entry states that it isolates itself. Not even that it isolates itself. That one flap of its wings could cause hurricanes for 40 days. That is absurd, obviously. But that's, the basis of the Pokédex entries are very deep and broad. The idea that this super powerful being is so caring that it, in-game, hides in the depths of the ocean because it knows how powerful it is such a great character design, and the power is backed up through the actual physical design of the character. And that I love. So the flying type there is beyond unique and cool, and a great flying type design. The psychic, little less on that, but still, the power. I guess you could say from the feeling standpoint of trying to take care of something, aka the world, Lugia is a great psychic basis. But Lugia is such a well-designed Pokemon. You can't argue Lugia up in the S+. And then to round off Gen 2, we have Celebi, the mythical Pokemon. I'm going to put Celebi at an A+, actually, which would probably shock some people. I love the onion fairy look, but it looks like a little mythical fairy. It's got the same vibes as Mew. What I really enjoy is as you grow older and you can clearly see the onion basis, the interpretation of layers and layers of time and how multifaceted time is as a time travel Pokemon, that's so smart. I don't think you immediately get that until you think about Celebi, but I think that's great design work. And it just looks like a mythical fairy that would be incredibly hard to catch. And a great basis for a mythical Pokemon. I shout out Pokemon Adventures almost every video for good reason. You should go read it. The manga has, in my opinion, the best storyline they tell is the Johto arc, and a lot of it is based off of the power of Celebi. And I think that is a great way to show why Celebi is so important. And so, using that as that idea, I love going back the layered approach to time and why that is so elusive. Time is elusive, as is, and our concept of time is elusive. How do you really understand the concept of time? And then to get to this elusive looking fairy is such a wise and unique design. I'm talking myself into it. I'm putting Celebi up to an S. I love Celebi. Celebi is so smart, and I really enjoy that ranking, or enjoy that design. So that's why I'm going to put Celebi at an S. Now, Gen 3 has so many legendary Pokemon and Gen 4 is worse, that I'm going to be a little bit harsher. But look at these. 2Bs probably going to move down with time, but 2Bs, 2As, and a bunch of S's and S+, please. Gen 1 and Gen 2 have phenomenal legendary groups. Now we're going to go into Gen 3, and this is where I'm going to be a little bit more harsh and going to be far more I don't want to say critical or negative. I like these Pokemon for the most part, but I think this is where, for me, there's a downturn for legendaries because they become so many legendaries in a generation gives the vibe that legendaries aren't as special. And to me, it should be about exclusivity. If you look at businesses, if you look at things that are based off of making something special, things that are super special are super unique. If you've heard my last video, I'm a big pro wrestling fan. I bring that up because of this. If you want to create a star and make that star feel special in that business, you don't see them all the time, much like a legendary Pokemon. When they do, they make an incredible impact, which, just like a legendary Pokemon, makes incredible impact. And on top of that, that star should not be rivaled by many. And when you have so many, and if a show had one legend on it or two legends on it, it's really special and they are presented as super special. But when you are presented as, one of 13 or one of 15, you're not as special. But when you're one of one or one of two or one of even 5 or 6, you're special. And that's where I'd use that example for legendaries. And that's where I think the trend of so many legendaries gets away from being super legendary, I guess. Odd way to say that. But that would be my critique of Gen 3 as a whole before we start. So I'm going to start with Groudon. I like Groudon. Groudon's a fine design. I think Groudon, more than almost any other Pokemon, has an inherent power to it. I'm going to put Groudon in an A. I think Groudon is super cool because it looks like something massive, primal, ancient, and something you should not mess with. And I love that. My only critique of Groudon will come to, when I see this red, I think of fire. I don't think of ground, and Groudon is a ground type Pokemon. So that would be my only critique of it. Not that you can't get red. You can get those wonderful tones of red through clay or the red rocks that you really see out in the Southwest in the United States. But I don't get ground, I get fire. And that's where my issue with Groudon would be. But other than that, I think Groudon's such a unique and well-designed Pokemon. Kyogre is going to be the same for me. I think Kyogre Clearly has a power and a myth to it. You see the water basis, obviously through the whale design, obviously through these little flowing tail whims there, which are really cool. But it takes a little bit of that hand design look from Lugia, but I don't think it executes it as well. But the tones are there, and it looks very cool. So again, it looks like something primal and ancient from a long time ago that makes it look exclusive or special. Both look exclusive or special, and they hit the legendary notes. So that's why I have an A. Meanwhile, we go to Rayquaza. Rayquaza is an S+. Rayquaza is super cool. Something I wanted to tie on once all three were on rankings. They all have these unique notes of these symbols that give off a unifying vibe between the three. Incredibly smart. That's better. That's more well done than any of the other trios that I've ranked previous. That is incredibly wise. And it looks like there's a lot of intricate design work that makes them feel more special than a traditional Pokemon. That is legendary in and of itself. I love the basis of Rayquaza as the Sky Dragon, Lord of the Skies. You don't mess with it. There's an inherent power to Rayquaza, but oddly, the mouth. You're gonna have to zoom in on this one, but the mouth almost has a happy feel, like it's happy to protect the world, but also it's happy to intervene between these two. Land and sea, then governed by sky, is really smart design choice that I like. And I do think if you're getting to this, green is just such a unique color to give off the dragon snake vibe. So smart. And the basis, this Mayan dragon vibe, is this Mayan serpentine dragon is so cool for Rayquaza. This design is so powerful. And then I won't even get into Mega Rayquaza. Mega Evolutions will be another ranking video of mine down the road. But this thing just looks powerful, unique. This coiled serpentine snake that's clearly up in the sky. So well done. Rayquaza, you want Rayquaza immediately because you're like, that thing is cool and I want it on my team because no one will be able to beat me if I have it on my team. So smart for a legendary Pokemon. Rayquaza's great. Latios and Latias, I don't view them as legendaries. I'm going to put Latios and Latias as Bs. Both are fine. Both are pretty much the exact same, just a color swap and a slightly different eye detail. They're fun. What about them is super special? I'm looking at my notes right now, quick, just for typing purposes as well. But I have the National Pokedex to my right. Dragon Psychics, they do have the dragon vibe. That's cool. But I don't get psychic from them outside of the characterization, but you see them as a bonded pair. That's really cool. I guess that would be the basis for the psychic type. So I can see it kind of like the Lugia. I don't immediately get Lugia vibes from these two in that all three don't give off this like psychic vibe, but their characterization throughout the game and their entries can give off a psychic vibe. That I can understand. They kind of look like fun little jet airplanes. That's cool, but that's it. Neither really gives me a lot of basis for fun. So I'd say they're good, not great Pokemon. So it'd be a B. Deoxys, this thing's an S. Deoxys is just, what a fun, unique design. And it looks alien. To be the first alien Pokemon is so wise because this thing looks alien. Where Mewtwo, there's something that makes it look synthetic and alien, but still familiar enough. This thing looks like it did not come from our planet, and it's here to mess with us. That I really think the design work is great. Psychic, that works for aliens because we've always heard myths and legends about aliens, whether it be Roswell or going into more clearly fiction. I'll be nice with clearly fiction of Roswell versus stories of aliens. Is that they're telekinetic, or they're telepathic. They have this different way of communicating than we do. that psychic vibe is there. This weird twirling design of the DNA basis and the changing, super wise and smart for Deoxys. I wasn't going to rank all 4 forms, but the changing of Deoxys, super cool. What a well-designed Pokemon. I like Deoxys a lot. That is an S Pokemon. And Jirachi. Jirachi, I'm going to put in the A+ category. I don't think it's as cool of a mythical as Mew or Celebi, but it's got this fun little inviting thing about it. I do like the unifying factors of these 3 mythicals all being there's something fun and whimsical and inviting about them that you don't normally get. Whereas, you know, the other mythicals moving forward don't have that same vibe. And that's where I would say these 3 have a unifying vibe, and I enjoy that. My biggest problem is typing. What about this says Steel? Nothing. What about this says Psychic? Nothing. Now, granted, the other 2 have those typings. So, again, Psychic is a little hard to convey, unlike a Deoxys or a Mewtwo. But outside of the mistype, I think I like the tag idea of the 3 wishes. I think that's cool. There's a whimsical vibe to it. So it's an A+ for me. But it's just not, it doesn't have the same depth of character that Mew or Celebi does. And now we're going to get on to our Titans. All 3 are pretty similar for this one. Regirock is a C. It looks like a behemoth and powerful, but it's a big old rock. Registeel, same deal. At least it looks very metallic. It looks like it's a beast and a behemoth. You know, these legendary golem type Pokemon are great from that aspect. I just wish that there was more to it in game to really explain that, which is something in my own region I'm exploring, is why are Regi Pokemon important to their environment, besides that they're big guarding golems that never seem to guard anything. And the same thing for Regice. I'm going to put Regice at the top of the 3 just because of the 3. I'm very prone to ice type designs. I'm from the greatest state in the Union, Wisconsin. I love the cold, I love the snow, and so I'm always drawn to ice types. And so that's why I'll put Regice in front of the 3. But nothing about Regice says it's a way better design than the other 2. So I gotta say same thing. But I like the formation of ice crystals making its body versus and using different unique. It looks almost like it's been carved. Where these 2 look like, this one looks like it's just mangled together. And then Registeel looks like it's been crafted by something. By what that is, I'm not sure. Again, great use of these 3 in Pokemon Adventures. I cannot recommend that manga enough. But that's it. That's Gen 3. So clearly I'm not as high on Gen 3, but it's got the standard bearer and Rayquaza. I think Rayquaza is hard to argue not being number 1, if not the one of the top 3 or 5 best legendary designs of all time. It's just, these 2 are great. I really like it, but slightly problematic for me. Latios and Latias, not much there. And the legendary golems are just kind of, they're there. They look legendary. They do. They look like ancient powers, but not something of great basis. But now we're going to roll into Gen 4. Gen 4, I'm going to sound rude about. But that's because, just follow my screen. All 12 of these are Gen 4. Again, they stop feeling as special. Really. And I think that's my problem with them. So I'm going to start with Regigigas. I don't think Regigigas is any better than the other 3. Cooler contrast in colors, a little bit cooler design, unifying thing about it. It kind of feels like the leader of the 4 because it has more than the other 3. It almost looks like, I'm a big Power Ranger fan. It looks very much like these are all part of a Power Ranger team. And then it's like, I am the rock one. I am the steel one. I am the ice one. And then what is Regigigas? It's like, well, I'm normal, but I've got way more cool. It's kind of like the Green Ranger thing where the Green Ranger has the chest shield. it gives me those vibes compared to other Rangers that have just the base monochromatic color scheme. So that's why I would put it ahead of those. But there's nothing about Regigigas that screams better than the other ones. The other thing I do find confusing about Regigigas is, what about it says normal type? This thing ain't normal. One of the things about normal types is that they look like everyday things that have been elevated to a Pokemon level. And if you can't really think of something, it's just got that vibe. Regigigas doesn't have a normal vibe. You just have to know it's normal. So that's why I'd have Regigigas further down than possibly a B. Because design-wise, I could move it up to a B, but Regigigas doesn't have that for me. Then we're going to go to the Lake Spirits. They're C's. Honestly, I could think about putting them in D's even. Fun idea. Each lake has its own spirit. Why are they legendaries or mythicals? Doesn't make sense to me. These three could easily be traditional Pokemon or pseudo legendaries and have a unifying thing. They almost look like they could be led by a Mew or a Jirachi, but they're not. And so why are they there? They don't belong. These three are the first three that really strike me as why are they legendary? Because I don't think they deserve that distinction. I don't think they're that special. That's just me. Same thing. I'm putting this up just because my personal preferences. I love Shaymin. I think Shaymin's great, and I think the flying form is different. I love the understated nature of, especially the hedgehog version of Shaymin. But I think anyone could easily argue why is it a legendary or why is it a mythical? It doesn't give off that vibe. Much like these three. There's more to this one at least than these three. But that would be my argument, which is why I would have Shaymin at a B, where my personal rankings of just liking Shaymin, I would have Shaymin higher. The one thing I can think of, I keep equating all these Pokemon to different franchises or different things. I love the understated nature of Shaymin, like the hobbits from the Lord of the Rings, where the reason they're such compelling characters, specifically Frodo and Sam and Bilbo, is they're familiar. They have something about them that there's something so wonderfully endearing about them being from the Shire and appreciating a simplistic life and why they need to go defend the world in their own way. Because they truly live the way we should, theoretically, I guess. That's why they're compelling. I like using that logic for Shaymin in that it's this little thing that needs to be protected. And it's such a simplistic, wonderful vibe of nature that the backstory is what can get me to buy in that it's a mythical. But the design doesn't say mythical. So that's why I would have Shaymin as a B. I love that interpretation in my own head, but I don't know if that, and the design gives me that, but I don't know if anyone else would possibly get that. So that's why I have Shaymin as a B. Darkrai. Darkrai is one of my boys. I love this thing. Darkrai is an S. It's an S for me because Darkrai looks like it eats your soul. And then to be a nightmare Pokemon that feeds off your dreams, Darkrai looks... I don't have a lot to say about Darkrai other than it looks like a beastly, intimidating, mythical thing because it looks like it haunts your nightmares. And that's phenomenal. And the design is perfect for that. I love Darkrai. Darkrai is an S. I could go to Cresselia, but I'll come back to Cresselia. Now I've got these two, Manaphy and Phione. I'm just looking at my notes because I want to pronounce the names correctly and do it right. So Phione and Manaphy, they're Fs. I'm sorry. They just are. What about them says special? I'm thinking the same thing about these three, but even in a lesser form. They just feel like, oh, they're legendaries. Why? Because we said so. Like, this looks like a random Pokemon you'd find at a lake in any generation. And then to be told, oh, they're legendaries and they have this thing, and they're not. I remember playing Legends Arceus, and just to try to complete the Pokedex, catching them and just being like, within 5 seconds, just going, I don't care. I did it because I needed to for the game, but who cares? Who cares? They're an F. They're just an F. They don't belong as legendary Pokemon. I'll say that straight up. And with that logic, I'm taking these 3 down. Because they don't feel all that special. Now we're going to get to Creation Trio. Arceus. I might shock some people. I'm not an Arceus fan, or most people would logically call it Arceus. I'm not an Arceus fan, and I'm going to put Arceus at a C. I really am. Personal note, the concept of a god to me is not something I jive with. That's something you do. Great. So the idea of a Pokemon god, to each their own. But I don't like the idea of a god in Pokemon, because then it gives too much. Unless that thing is clearly godly, as in I created you, it doesn't bode well as a concept for me. In other media, when something is a god, there's a clear reason for it. And there's something about them that is mythical, and you can't quite put your finger on it. And there's a reason why they're a god. What about Arceus says god? I don't see a god in Arceus. I just see this random weird horse-looking thing with an odd saddle. I mean, I don't like Arceus' design. I guess the odd little Shakespeare fellow in me loves the personification of it in Legends Arceus, but like, what about it says it's all that special? To me, nothing. It doesn't feel that special. The normal type, at least it's kind of there with the white, but then to get this odd symbol on it just throws me off. I don't think it's all that cool. I think it really detracts from the design overall, and I just don't think it doesn't give off this majestic, powerful vibe that it is the god Pokemon. Where if you can say Mew, going back, Mew is this awesome Pokemon because it is the basis for everything, which is why Mew is unique. Where it looks like this thing is so simplistic, and then this light tail design gives you that I am the basis of everything. That's really smart, and a subtle way to put in there is these ancient legendary Pokemon that create the line of Pokemon as a basis. That's really cool and a really great subtle way to throw in this thing's powerful. But to just say this is the god Pokemon and then to have this as it is a flaw, and it's something I don't appreciate much. That's why I have Arceus as a C, or an Arceus as a C. And the same thing, I'm going to go with Dialga and Palkia. They're going to end up the same way. I always get the two confused, unfortunately, even though I shouldn't. I was going to guess right. Dialga, I'll put it a C. It looks powerful. It looks like it's important. But what about it gives off space and time vibes? It doesn't to me. I guess you can say it looks kind of like a dragon. Cool. It's a different interpretation of a dragon. That I'm okay with. And the steel, I guess, comes through the more metallic gray vibe. That's fine with me. My issue with it would be that, other than that, this thing looks like it should be a water Pokemon because of the blue. And that doesn't make sense to me. It looks like it's cursing with power. Steel Dragon doesn't. That's not the first thing I would think of. I think that's not in a good way, in a poor way. So that's why I'd have Dialga there. Where Palkia, same deal. They feel like mistakes, honestly, to me. This thing looks more metallic and more. This thing looks a lot more metallic. It looks a lot more steelish. And then to have it as a water Pokemon doesn't make any sense at all. It looks powerful. It looks like a dragon. Those things I'm on board with. Great. But what about it says water Pokemon? It honestly feels sometimes like the kind of Psyduck Golduck thing where everyone thinks that Psyduck was meant to be named Golduck and then Golduck was meant to be Psyduck. It feels like they just screwed up the typing and rolled with it. Where, like, I get that dark blue could give the space vibe off of Dialga because the whole thing is supposed to be space and time. And then it goes into the creation. That's the idea and the concept. I like the concept of all three. But then, like, what about these? I don't think they give a really unifying, cool, unique thing outside of maybe the headpieces. And what about this as water Pokemon? Actually, no, the more I think about it, I'm putting Palkia at a D. I like Palkia more than I like Dialga. It's just, what about it gives anything to say water? It doesn't. It looks like it should be a steel dragon. It ain't. That's the steel dragon. The only reason I'm not going to bring bring Dialga down is the dark blue and these cursing light blue vibes and these weird boot-like feet give a more futuristic space vibe. So maybe I'll give it that. But that's it. They're not all that impressive. Meanwhile, you have the biggest redeeming factor of all, my boy Giratina. Giratina is an S+. The only reason I can vibe with Arceus being slightly a god is because you give me Pokemon Satan. And that's what it's really about. This thing looks like it is a menacing, powerful dragon, and the wings give that weathered look. They look like a weathered pirate ship sail that gives you something that is menacing, intimidating, and ancient vibes. The origin form gives you even more of that ghost vibe. You get ghost vibe, you get dragon vibe, you get that it's a clear, all the colors are slightly different, but unifying to Arceus. You get that this thing is menacing. The distortion world was an enormous, great touch to give to Giratina. Giratina feels special, it feels unique, it feels powerful. Giratina is an S+. Giratina is one of my favorite Pokemon, and I am not a Gen 4 fan in general. The Pokemon for me don't really give off of endearing in vibe. A lot of them I think are lesser than what a lot of people believe. I think Gen 4 is by far the worst generation of the first four, only to be outdone by Black and White. But Giratina is the redeeming factor. Giratina is the best of Gen 4, and that is without question. Giratina is an S+. And I'm sorry, I'm a punk rock guy. I'm a big metal guy, rock guy. My favorite band is Ghost. I feel like I could go to a Ghost concert on the back of Giratina and vibe and just be like, this is the greatest day of my life. That is awesome. Giratina is so special and so cool. And then we're going to finish off these last two with Gen 4, because I know we're going to definitely break this into two parts. My video editing skills were better. I'd break it into three parts. Heatran's an F. I like it more than the other two, but frankly, if you want to get a better take on Heatran, I highly recommend the channel subjectively. I think I prop them up as much as possible. They've taught me a lot about art in general. Heatran looks like a big old poop cloud to a degree, or a weird... It looks like, if you're a superhero movie fan, it looks like what studios thought big menacing space monsters were supposed to look like. It has a similar vibe to that. If you ever watched the Green Lantern movie or the second Fantastic Four movie, both are really bad. I'm telling you that right now. They both have that weird cloud god monster, being Parallax or Galactus. What the hell is Heatran's vibe? It doesn't give anything. I guess you can get Volcano because it looks a little molten, but that's it. And that's really problematic because I like the shape. I think it's there, but it doesn't look legendary. It doesn't look mythical. It looks powerful, but not legendary. I think there's a lot that could have been done. And I bring up the subjectively video because they really go to town on Heatran, and they do a redesign that I think is phenomenal. And it's actually based off of, I think they used the basis of a cryptid creature that's based in my neck of the woods from Wisconsin, up in the Rhinelander area, called the HoOh, where it's this weird, menacing horn frog beast looking thing. Heatran's got that vibe, and their redesign does really, really well with that. So Heatran, I would say, there's so much more of a basis that could be done, and it's just a really poor execution. Heatran's an F. I'm sorry, it just is. I wish it wasn't, because I love the basis of maybe being that HoOh, especially that Scotty in me that loves my homeland wants it to be better, but I just don't think it is. And Cresselia, I'll put Cresselia up at a C. I don't think Cresselia is all that cool or inviting, but I will say it gives mythical vibes and it gives hypnotic vibes of psychic. And I think being the lunar duo between, it's interesting this one being so light and bright, and then Darkrai being so dark and menacing. Cresselia looks inviting. But with the moon basis here, the aura of a starburst or something on the side of, stars bursting. It's a better way to put that instead of the candy. Of the star bursting effect and this nebula-like effect here, I think is a really unique touch of Cresselia. I think that's really well done. I just think Cresselia feels like a forgotten piece of, most people are not going to tell you that. How many people do you think are Pokemon fans that would say, my favorite legendary is Cresselia? Nobody. Because it just kind of feels like the design is not an afterthought. The design is really cool and unique, but Cresselia was just kind of there. In all Pokemon games, Cresselia is just there. Where Darkrai has this awesome immediate effect on people, Cresselia doesn't. But I think the psychic vibes are there. It makes sense as a psychic Pokemon. I love the basis of the moon being such a hypnotic, attractive thing to the human condition, that those notes of design in Cresselia are great. But I just think it ends there for Cresselia, and the personification doesn't go further. The in-game use doesn't go further. And that's why I have Cresselia as a C. And then just to do some quick notes and editing up, because I think the design of Cresselia is way better than some of the other things, I'll put Moltres down at the C now. And I will do the same for Articuno. I think they're right around this range as well. And so I just wanted to do that housekeeping. That's going to do it. We just did gens 1 through 4. Stay tuned for part 2, which will be uploaded as soon as this one's up pretty much. I usually like to do it just 1 minute behind each other so you can get the full effect of the videos. But I hope you like this video. Love to see your rankings. Again, the description of this video and the link into this video is in the description to this personal video. That was a really poor way of saying that. The link to Tiermaker will be in the description of this video in case you want to do your own personal rankings, which I hope you do, because I find it really fun and I'd love to compare notes and see your thoughts. But by all means, love for you guys to do that. And then if you could, please like, subscribe, comment. It always helps the algorithm, helps the channel, helps us grow, and that's how I want to do a lot more cool content, and to do that I got to be able to grow. So I hope you guys can do that for me. Follow me again, here on YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, wherever you can. Just help me out as much as you can. I appreciate it. But that is it for this video. I'll get to part 2 right after this. So in the meantime, in between time, deuces, peace.